We grow up believing that if we want something, we must chase it to the end. Love, career, success, all must be earned, conquered, or fought for. But that belief has left many exhausted, many souls torn apart from endlessly running after things that may never have been meant for them. Perhaps we were mistaken. Perhaps the issue is not that we haven't tried hard enough, but that we've approached life the wrong way. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that remains ever relevant, teaches that what is truly yours will come to you if you are quiet enough to notice and grounded enough to receive it. No need to chase, no need to cling. Just live in alignment with your best nature. This video is not about abandoning effort, but an invitation to stop grasping and to learn how to become inwardly magnetic, someone who doesn't have to fight for what is worthy, yet still draws it in. Because sometimes, the harder we try to control, the farther happiness slips away. But when we let go mindfully, what is right for us will quietly find its way. 1. Stop controlling. Start releasing. Most of us were taught from a young age that if we want something, we must strive to get it. We must take charge, stay in control, and hold tight to our goals. This works to an extent, but when taken to the extreme, it leaves us tense, constantly on edge, and perpetually feeling not enough. The mind is always ready to intervene in everything from when someone replies to a text to when a career door might open. We start to believe that without control, we'll fail. But that clinging is what drains us and pushes everything farther away instead of bringing it closer. In Stoic philosophy, there is one principle, simple but profound. You can only master what lies within your control. The rest, others' emotions, the passage of time, society's perception doesn't belong to you. The more you try to grasp them, the more you lose your freedom. When you learn to release not from weakness, but from clarity about boundaries, you begin to reclaim dominion over your own mind. You no longer need things to go your way to feel at peace. You stop being unsettled by a message seen but not answered, or anxious when someone hasn't responded yet. You allow waiting to exist without suffocating it with worry. Letting go doesn't mean laziness or passivity. It means you still do your part. You send the email, plant the seed, speak the truth, and then step back from expectation. You stop believing that everything must go exactly as planned for it to count as success. You trust that if your actions are sincere and mindful, the rest will fall into place. What we call the right person at the right time only happens when we stop twisting time and circumstances to fit our own will. Picture your mind like a clenched fist. Each expectation is a curled finger, each fear a tight joint. You think holding tight will keep what you want, but the more you grip, the more you harm yourself. Only when you open your hand, when you let go, can you receive what life offers. Nothing can settle into a fist that won't release. The mind needs space to breathe. Connection needs time to grow. Opportunity needs the right rhythm to bloom. Everything has its own tempo, and it is not your job to speed it up. Your task is to align your presence with the natural flow, like someone who knows when to row and when to lay the oars down and let the current carry them. In that release, not forcing, not pushing, you'll see everything begin to arrive, quietly and rightly. Life doesn't need to be controlled. It needs to be listened to. And when you stop pulling, you'll realize what's right for you doesn't come when you chase it, but when you become someone ready to receive not through force, not through control, but through an open heart and steady self. 2. Control is an illusion, not a strength. We live in a world where control is seen as a symbol of power and competence. The successful are those who control their schedules, their teams, their outcomes, their emotions, even their future. But what few people tell you is, The effort to control the external world often provides only a fleeting illusion of safety, not true stability. Because sooner or later, something will slip beyond your grasp, an unexpected event, a person who changes, a missed opportunity, or a door that closes without your permission. And when that happens, if your mental stability rests entirely on your ability to control, you will collapse. Marcus Aurelius, once emperor of an entire empire, understood this well. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." At first, this might sound ordinary, but let it sink in, and you'll see a liberating truth. You don't need to control the world to be strong. You only need to master how you respond to it. Because if your power depends on something outside you, others agreeing, success arriving, praise being given, then your strength lives in someone else's hands. Look closely at the moments you try to control. Do you notice yourself becoming tense, restless, often disappointed? That's because control is a reaction rooted in fear. Fear of failing, fear of loss, fear of not being enough. And when fear drives you, your actions are not born from clarity, but from defense. You call repeatedly just to confirm they still care. You check results every hour to prove you're on track. You plan obsessively, hoping everything unfolds according to script. But this only drains you, exhausts your energy, and worse, it disconnects you from the present. True strength isn't making everything go your way, but remaining steady when things don't. It's when you can say, "I've done my part, and I accept the rest." Not because you've given up, but because you understand human limits and you respect them. Letting go of control isn't quitting, it's ending the futile struggle to bend what can't be bent. It gives you flexibility to adapt, clarity to observe, and steadiness to stand through turbulence. Think about this. What if you stopped trying to make everything happen your way, and instead just showed up each day with full presence? What if you shifted from "I must control" to "I will adjust myself"? You'd discover that control isn't power, it's a burden. And when you set it down, you don't become weaker, you become lighter, freer, and wise enough to know you don't need to control everything to live a powerful life. 3. No outcome defines you. From an early age, we were taught that our worth lies in achievements, grades, titles, careers, income, or partners. When you do something well, you're praised. When you fail, you're ignored or worse, judged. Gradually, we begin to tie our self-worth to external outcomes. And if one day things don't go as hoped, you get rejected, miss the job, lose the relationship, you start to doubt yourself, as if your value dropped just because something didn't work out. But through the lens of Stoicism, there's a profound truth you must remember. No outcome defines who you are. Success doesn't make you nobler, and failure doesn't make you less. The only thing that truly defines you is how you live, how you act, and how you uphold your values regardless of the outcome. Epictetus taught, "Your job is to do well what is yours to do. The result is not your concern." This doesn't kill ambition. It frees you from the pressure to control everything just to prove your worth. Imagine building a house, brick by brick, with care. Each brick laid with focus, with love for the craft, and with respect for the process. Sometimes, a heavy rain might wash away the foundation you just finished. That hurts, but if you understand that your worth isn't in how fast the house is built, but in the consistency and heart you bring to each brick, you'll keep going without losing yourself. But if you believe you're only worthy once the house is done, you'll never feel complete. Stoics live by an internal standard. They do what's right not to be noticed, but because it is right. They write books no one may read. They stay calm amid chaos. They act with kindness without waiting for applause. Because to them, the highest reward is inner integrity, a peace that comes from living truthfully, without dependence on the world's approval. When you grasp this, life becomes lighter. You dare to try because you no longer fear failure. You dare to love because rejection no longer diminishes you. You dare to live sincerely because you no longer measure yourself by results. Results will come and go. Recognition too. But your character, your will, your chosen response to the world, these cannot be taken from you. And when you let go of needing to always win, you don't grow weaker. You grow up. You stop asking, "What did I get?" and start asking, "How did I live?" And that question alone will lead you to real freedom, the kind no one can grant, no one can steal, and no outcome can ever define. 4. Inner stillness is the most powerful invitation. We live in a noisy world, not just the sound of traffic, social media, or constant messages, but the noise inside our heads. Am I doing enough? Do they still think about me? Why hasn't the opportunity come yet? These questions echo like voices in a cave, and the more you try to answer them, the deeper you get pulled into chaos. Yet the paradox is, what you're desperately searching for, clarity, understanding, a direction, never comes from noise. It only arises when you pause, when your mind truly settles, when your inner world stops being a battlefield. Inner stillness is not about escaping or passive silence. It is the state of someone no longer driven by fear or desire. When you are quiet enough, you begin to hear what you've long missed. The voice of intuition, your own boundaries, the call of your core values. That silence doesn't make you passive, on the contrary. It sharpens your awareness. It's like a lake once the wind stops. Only when the surface is still can you see the bottom. And that bottom is the truth you've been searching for, not out there, but deep within. In Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That line is not just meditative, it's a compass for those wrestling with anxiety and inner conflict. As long as you're frantically proving, persuading, chasing, you're radiating frantic energy. And that energy doesn't invite what's right, it creates distance. But when you show up with quiet solidity, no flashy words, no desperate effort to be seen, that very energy becomes a silent invitation. Others feel its calm and are drawn to it without knowing why. Have you ever sat next to someone who didn't say much but made you feel safe? Not because they were smarter, not because they tried to impress, but because their presence was steady, gentle, unforced, and clear. That is the power of stillness. Not loud, yet strong. Not boastful, yet unmistakable. No need to prove because they've stopped seeking validation from outside. And when you live like that, you stop chasing. You become still and yet magnetic because your energy no longer carries lack or confusion. Inner stillness helps you distinguish what's true from what's illusion. It teaches you to pause before reacting, adjust before resisting, and listen before responding. In that silence, you clearly see what fits, what's fleeting, and what is merely an echo of old fear. And gradually, you learn the most vital skill of a conscious life, not to force things into being, but to know when to let them arrive. 5. True attraction comes from alignment, not forced effort. Many of us believe that the harder we try, the better the outcome, that if we put in enough effort, anything can be achieved. It's a common belief, and sometimes it's true. But there comes a point where you must be honest with yourself. Some things won't happen, no matter how much you give. Some relationships require you to always be the one starting the conversation. Some opportunities keep slipping away despite your pursuit. Some doors remain closed no matter how many times you knock. And maybe the issue isn't that you haven't tried hard enough, but that they're simply not meant for you. Real attraction doesn't come from trying to prove you're worthy. It comes from living so fully in your values that what's aligned with you naturally finds its way. In nature, no lion chases every creature it sees. It selects, observes, analyzes, and moves when the timing and energy match. A bird doesn't scream to attract the sky, it simply flies in the right direction. Likewise, we can attract opportunities, relationships, and recognition not by forcing them, but by becoming aligned with what we seek. You don't need to reshape yourself to fit into a person, a job, or a dream. If you constantly have to adjust, suppress, pretend to be cheerful or clever, or act out of character just to stay, then maybe what you're pursuing isn't a fit. And nothing drains you more than forcing yourself to be someone you're not, just to hold on to something that was never in harmony. True attraction is always rooted in resonance, never in one-sided effort. When you live in alignment, meaning you know who you are, what you want, and no longer need to pretend or overperform, you emit an energy others feel at ease around. No pressure, no calculation, no hidden expectations. Every interaction becomes lighter, more honest, and that is the foundation of genuine connection. A right relationship doesn't need persuasion. A right opportunity doesn't need begging. A right path won't ask you to betray yourself. Alignment also saves you time and energy. Instead of chasing everything that looks good on the outside, you learn to listen within and choose what truly resonates. You stop running blind races, stop feeling left behind when others succeed. Because you realize not everything is meant for you, and you don't need everything to be yours. True attraction doesn't come from doing more than others. It comes from daring to be more honest than others. When you stop trying to become someone others will like, and start becoming who you truly are, clearly and sincerely, you'll see the right people, chances, and paths begin to approach you without you pulling. And when that happens, you'll realize you never had to force things into place. You just had to be true to yourself. What's right will naturally align. 6. Nothing arrives before you're ready to receive it. Life works in strange ways. The more you desperately want something, the farther it seems to drift. You can pray, plan, try until you're exhausted, and still the door remains shut. Then one day, when you stop forcing, when your mind grows quiet, when you stop chasing, the thing you once longed for suddenly appears. Why is that? Because not everything you want is ready to show up, and not every version of you is ready to hold it. In Stoicism, this isn't irony, it's natural law. What fits will come, but only when you've matured enough to receive it without losing yourself. We often feel impatient with time. We draw timelines like, by 25 I should have a stable career, by 30 I should have a family, by 35 I should be financially free. But life doesn't follow the charts you draw, it moves at its own pace. What you think is delay might actually be preparation. Maybe the right person hasn't appeared not because you're unworthy, but because you still hold false beliefs about your worth. Maybe your dream job hasn't arrived, not because you're lacking, but because you're not yet grounded enough to carry it without collapsing under pressure. Maybe the door hasn't opened because you still carry fears that haven't been resolved. When you're not ready, good things arriving early become burdens. You might lose a meaningful relationship because you're still living in old wounds. You might sabotage a great opportunity because your fear of failure keeps you from stepping beyond your comfort zone. That's why sometimes delay is protection. The universe isn't rejecting you, it's waiting for you to be strong enough to keep what you've asked for. Think of a farmer. They don't sow seeds today and expect harvest tomorrow. They understand growth needs time, and any forceful rush only ruins the process. A fruit ripened too quickly never tastes right. A relationship born out of pressure never lasts. A path driven by fear only leads you astray. So instead of asking, "Why hasn't it come yet?" ask yourself, "Am I truly ready to keep it?" Maturity doesn't come from adding more, but from letting go less expectation, less anxiety, less comparison. When you fully live in the present, unhurried, unattached, you begin to see life unfold with a gentle but certain rhythm. You see yourself being prepared bit by bit, not to wait for a miracle, but to become the miracle in your own life. And someday, when you no longer hunger from a place of lack, but simply open your heart with gratitude and readiness, what you seek will arrive not a moment too soon, not a second too late, but exactly when you can hold it with peaceful hands. 7. From craving to stillness. Desire is deeply human. We long to be loved, to be seen, to live a meaningful life. No one is wrong for dreaming, and no one is weak for wanting something good to come their way. But the line between healthy longing and desperate attachment is often razor thin. When a desire becomes so intense, so urgent, that you cannot feel at peace without it, you are no longer in control of the desire, it is in control of you. And in that state, you're not attracting the good, you're losing yourself in pursuit of it at any cost. Stoicism doesn't teach you to give up your desires, it teaches you to master them. Epictetus once said that true freedom begins when we no longer stake our life on what lies beyond our control. This includes not tying your worth to whether someone loves you, whether the opportunity appears, or whether the dream comes true on the timeline you imagined. Still desire is when you still want something perhaps deeply, but if it doesn't come, you remain steady. You don't lose your balance, don't shrink from lack, don't rush to chase at all costs. You say, "I want this, but if it doesn't happen, I'll be okay." Stillness doesn't extinguish passion, it matures it. It transforms the energy of craving into steadiness, not anxiety. You still try, but you try from a place of clarity, not fear of being left behind. You still act, but not to fill a void, rather, to honor your truth. At this level, you no longer depend on having it to feel complete. You've found fullness within the waiting itself. In reality, what comes from stillness always carries a different quality. A person comes not because you clung to them, but because they were drawn to the stability within you. An opportunity arrives not because you begged for it, but because you had become the kind of person ready to receive it. And even if what you hope for never shows up, you can still live fully because you're no longer living from lack, but from a deep internal richness. Transforming craving into stillness is a journey. It requires you to face yourself, to confront your fear of rejection, your unhealed wounds, your long-standing sense of not being enough. But in that confrontation, you learn to release without losing, to want without needing, to act without demanding. And when you reach the point where you can say, "I still want this, but I no longer depend on it to feel whole," you'll experience a profound freedom where whatever arrives is welcomed, and whatever doesn't no longer unsettles you. That's when you begin attracting what's right, not with desperate cries, but with the quiet wisdom of a soul that has grown. 8. The process is the reward, not the means. We're often taught to focus on the goal, to aim for results, to believe that all effort only matters if and only if it leads to a tangible achievement. But that way of thinking turns life into a series of journeys reduced to destinations. Each day becomes less a living experience and more a stepping stone to achieve something. In that hurry, we forget how to feel each moment. We live as if racing against time, against others, against ourselves. But when we finally arrive, the happiness we expected often doesn't follow. Instead, a new race begins. The so-called reward always remains ahead, never truly present. Stoic philosophy offers another path. The process is not a means to an end, it is the reward itself. What you're searching for isn't waiting at the end of the road, it's within each step. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste time worrying about outcomes or others' opinions, live in the present and live with kindness," he reminded us that the real value of life isn't in what you accomplish, but in how you lived through it. Did you live truthfully? Did you do what was right? Did you stay calm in the storm? That's what stays with you, not the accolades, but the character. When you focus on the process, you begin to see the beauty in small things. A hard day's honest work, a short conversation rich in connection, a moment where you chose patience over reaction. These won't show up on your resume, but they are evidence of a life lived deeply. You don't need others' approval to know you've done well. You only need to return to your inner stillness and ask, am I living true to my values? If the answer is yes, that is the reward. And when you live this way, outcome, success or failure no longer shake you. Success becomes a milestone, failure becomes a lesson, but you no longer define yourself by either. You stop thinking, who I am depends on what I achieve, and begin to say, I am someone who strives daily to live kindly, honestly, and consciously. And the miracle is this: when you let go of outcomes and focus on the process, what you longed for comes more gently, more durably, and more in its time. Picture an artist painting. If they only think of selling their work, the joy fades quickly. But if they love every brushstroke, every color, every minute of immersion, then even without buyers, they are still nourished. Life is the same. Choose to live so each day reflects who you're becoming, not just a rung on a ladder to something else. Because in the end, what you carry forward isn't a scorecard, it's the journey itself. Lived with fullness, meaning, and free from being bound to a destination. 9. Letting go of control is choosing freedom. In many minds, letting go is equated with failure. Ending a relationship means losing. Abandoning a goal means weakness. Relinquishing control means surrender. But that is a deep misunderstanding, because there are things in life that only become yours when you dare to release them. Stoic philosophy doesn't teach us to control everything, but to clearly discern what belongs to us and what doesn't. True freedom begins with that awareness you cannot control everything, and you don't need to. Many live in a constant state of holding tight, holding on to a lifeless relationship, family expectations, a flawless self-image in others' eyes, keeping everything under control like a machine programmed to perfection. But that holding becomes suffocating. They grow tired, depleted, anxious, always afraid that if they don't control it all, everything will collapse. They fail to see that over-control itself is the root of their unrest. Because life moves on its own terms, the more you force it, the more it resists. When you let go of control, you don't lose power, you transform it. From the force of grasping to the strength of trust. From acting out of fear to acting from steadiness. From hurried reaction to conscious choice. Stoics don't live passively, but they know when to stop, when to release, and when to accept. They understand that sometimes what's good doesn't come from trying harder, but from shedding what no longer fits. A hand can only receive something new when it's no longer clinging to the old. The freedom you gain from letting go isn't recklessness, it's the release from being tied to what was never yours. You no longer lose sleep over what others think. You no longer act just to keep someone from leaving. You no longer force outcomes to match your timeline. Instead, you live more honestly, listen more deeply, and act from inner clarity. And that makes you lighter, calmer, no longer strained. Freedom doesn't come from having control over everything. It comes from no longer being ruled by the fear of losing control. When you learn to release what can't be changed, you open the door to what is more right, more whole, and more lasting. And in that state, you're no longer trying to steer the river of life, you're someone who knows how to swim within it, adaptable, composed, and grounded enough not to be swept away. That is a freedom no outcome can give you. Only when you let go do you find you're truly alive. 10. Be someone who knows themselves, not someone everyone likes. We all want to be loved, accepted, and acknowledged. That longing is instinctive. But the trouble begins when you try to become a version of yourself that pleases everyone. Someone who never offends, never disagrees, never stands out. You begin to adjust your voice to suit others' ears, change your opinions to align with the crowd, behave in safe ways to avoid friction. At some point, you're no longer living as yourself, but as a set of reactions crafted to meet others' expectations. And sadly, when you live to be liked by everyone, you slowly forget how to become someone you truly respect. Stoic philosophy doesn't place value on pleasing others. It places value on inner clarity, on whether you're living by your principles, acting with integrity, and maintaining alignment between your thoughts, words, and actions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Dig within. Within is the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig." That statement reminds us that true worth doesn't come from external validation, but from deep self-awareness and loyalty to your inner self. The truth is, you can't control how others perceive you. No matter how kind you are, how smart you become, or how hard you try, there will still be people who dislike you, misunderstand you, or judge you unfairly, and that is not your fault. The only thing you can control is how you respond. You can choose to act kindly, even without reciprocation. You can choose to stay true to your beliefs, even when others think you're too different. And if someone doesn't like the real you, then they're not someone you need to keep. When you know who you are, you no longer have to strain to be accepted. You no longer need applause to feel worthy. You stop editing yourself like a brand in need of approval. You begin to live from the inside, where worth is not measured by consensus but by clarity. You know where you're headed, what you're standing for, and you're willing to let go of what doesn't align in order to stay true to yourself. That kind of courage cannot be given. It's forged through years of honesty and self-confrontation. The beauty is, when you live authentically, you don't become someone everyone likes, but you start attracting those who genuinely resonate with you. Shallow connections fall away, making room for relationships that are honest, deep, and require no pretense to sustain. When you no longer need to be liked by all, you finally create space to be truly understood by the few who matter. And that is not just acceptance, it is freedom, dignity, and the solid ground on which you can stand still in a shifting world and remain yourself. You don't need to please everyone, you only need to stop betraying yourself. That is the mark of someone who has truly grown. I used to be someone who always felt I had to do more to hold on to what was precious: a relationship, an opportunity, a dream. I believed that if I didn't try hard enough, didn't chase after it, I'd lose everything. But then I realized what truly belongs to you will never require you to lose yourself in order to keep it. The things that made me strain, worry, and question my worth turned out not to be right, just familiar. When I began to slow down, stopped forcing things to happen my way, everything began to come more gently, more naturally, and I understood that real attraction doesn't come from chasing, but from clarity and inner peace. You don't have to fight for what's meant to arrive when you're truly ready. If you found this content meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next videos. And remember, what's right for you will never ask you to abandon yourself to hold on to it. See you in the next video.